I always believed that betrayal comes from strangers, never from your own blood. But I learned the hard way. The deepest wounds are carved by the hands you once trusted the most. My name is Dylan, and this story begins in Los Angeles, the city where dreams shine bright, but shadows grow quietly behind them. I lived with my mother in a small apartment near Vermont Avenue. Life wasn't perfect. We were poor. We struggled, but we were honest. We were together, and that meant more to me than anything money could buy. My father, Mr. Nathan, left us years ago. Walked out when I was 13, left my mother crying on the floor, clutching a photo of their wedding day like it still meant something. For years, I carried that pain. For years, I tried to forget him. But life has a strange way of bringing the past back, not softly, but like a storm that destroys everything you love. It started the day I met Brooklyn. She came into my life like sunlight, warm, gentle, almost unreal. I met her at a coffee shop on Sunset Boulevard. She was sitting alone with a book, wearing a simple white dress and a smile that looked like it didn't belong in this harsh world. I didn't plan to talk to her. I was only there for a cheap black coffee before my night shift. But she looked up, caught me staring, and smiled. That smile changed everything. We talked for hours. We exchanged numbers, and for the first time in my life, I felt seen, loved, chosen. Brooklyn wasn't rich, but she carried herself with elegance. She listened when I spoke. She laughed at my jokes. She cared about my mother. Even brought her flowers the first time she visited our apartment. My mother adored her. Instantly said she was the blessing our broken home needed. I believed that too, until I realized nothing in my life was ever that simple. Weeks passed, relationship grew, and one evening, Brooklyn hesitated before speaking a sentence that would change my life forever. "Dylan, there's someone I want you to meet." I thought she meant a friend, maybe a relative. But when she said the name, I felt my heart freeze. "His name is Nathan," she whispered. "He's my mentor, my financial advisor, almost like a father figure." My breath left my body. Nathan, my father's name. But Los Angeles is huge, full of people with the same name. Right. But then she pulled out a photo, a smiling older man in a blue suit, and my hand started shaking. It was him, my father, the man who abandoned me, the man Brooklyn trusted, the man she said guided her through the hardest years of her life. I felt sick. Why was she connected to him? Why didn't she know I was his son? Why did my father suddenly reappear in my life through the woman I loved? My mind filled with questions, but my voice failed. I sat there frozen, staring at the picture of the man who destroyed my family, and now somehow stood behind the girl who healed me. Brooklyn touched my hand gently. "Are you okay? You look pale." I forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." But inside, I already felt the storm coming. That night, I walked alone on the cold Los Angeles streets, feeling like the universe was laughing at me. My father, after years of silence, was connected to my fiancée, and she didn't know I was his son. She didn't know our history. She didn't know the danger. But I did, and somewhere deep inside, something told me this wasn't a coincidence. It was the beginning of a trap built by the man I once called Dad. When I got home, that night my mother was sitting on the couch, sewing an old shirt like she always did. She looked up, saw my face, and her smile faded immediately. "Dylan, what happened?" I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to fall on my knees and say, "Mom, he's back. Nathan is back, and he's connected to Brooklyn." But I stayed quiet. I always protected my mother from pain, even when it broke me inside. So I lied. "It's nothing, Mom, just tired from work." But mothers, they always feel the truth, even when you don't speak it. She touched my shoulder gently and said, "Whatever it is, don't let it eat you alive. You are stronger than your past." I nodded, but her words only made the ache in my chest sharper. Because I wasn't strong, not then, not when it came to my father. The next morning, my phone buzzed. "Brooklyn, baby, can you come with me tonight? Mr. Nathan wants to meet you. I told him so much about you. He's excited." I stared at that message for a long time. Mr. Nathan wants to meet you. My father wants to meet me, as if I'm a stranger, as if he didn't walk away from my life, my birthday, my childhood. I typed slowly. "Okay, I'll come," because part of me needed answers, because something was wrong, deeply wrong in this connection between Brooklyn and him. Because a man like Nathan never guided someone without purpose. He always wanted something. Always. That evening, Brooklyn picked me up in her old silver car. She was excited, glowing, completely unaware of the storm I carried inside. Dylan, he's the one who helped me get a job when I had nothing. He supported me like the father I never had. I can't wait for you two to meet. I think he'll love you. Love me. My own father couldn't love me when I was his son. Why would he love me now? I forced a smile and nodded. We drove into the wealthy part of Los Angeles, wide streets, tall gates, houses that looked like movie sets. Brooklyn parked in front of a huge white mansion with a black iron fence. My heart froze. I knew this house. I had seen it once, years ago, when my father left us and built his new life. A life he never shared with us. A life he stole from my mother. Brooklyn grabbed my hand. Ready? No, I wasn't ready. But I nodded anyway. She rang the doorbell. Moments later, the door opened, and there he stood. My father, older, richer, colder, wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He looked right at me, and for a split second, I saw recognition. He knew exactly who I was. He knew the son he abandoned was standing in front of him. But instead of shock, instead of regret, instead of any emotion a father should feel, he smirked. A slow, careful smirk, like he had been waiting. Like this moment fed his ego. Brooklyn stepped forward and hugged him. Mr. Nathan, this is Dylan, the guy I told you about. He extended a hand toward me. Nice to meet you. His voice was smooth, calm, professional. As if I was a stranger walking into his life for the first time, I didn't shake his hand. He raised an eyebrow, amused, not offended. Brooklyn looked confused. Dylan, I quickly pretended I didn't see his hand. Sorry, Nerva, I said quietly. Brooklyn smiled gently and squeezed my arm. It's okay. But Nathan's eyes stayed locked on me, sharp, cold, calculating, the look of a man who knew he held power over the room, over the situation. Over me, we walked inside. The whole house smelled expensive leather, cologne, polished wood, a life of comfort built on the suffering he left behind. Nathan led us to the dining table. He poured wine for himself, water for us, and began talking. Talking about business, talking about success, talking about life lessons. But every time his eyes met mine, the words shifted, turned darker, sharpened like knives. He started saying things that weren't directed at Brooklyn at all. Always believed some people aren't strong enough to survive the world. Weak men collapse under pressure. Only the smart ones rise. His eyes locked on me. I felt my fists tighten. He continued, some people leave their families behind because they were holding them back. Sometimes sacrifice is necessary. Brooklyn nodded innocently. That's so deep. But I knew what he meant. Every word was a dagger meant for me. He wasn't giving a lesson. He was reminding me he walked away, reminding me he felt justified, reminding me he didn't regret it. Brooklyn suddenly touched his arm. Mr. Nathan, I want to tell you something. I'm planning to marry Dylan. I really love him. Nathan leaned back in his chair. A slow smile spread across his face. But it wasn't happiness. It wasn't approval. It was victory. He looked at me with the eyes of a man who had already won a battle I didn't even understand yet. Then he said words that froze my soul. Oh, Brooklyn, I chose him for you. Brooklyn laughed softly. What do you mean? But I knew he wasn't joking. I knew something evil was hidden behind those words. Nathan leaned forward, his gaze burning into mine. I knew from the moment I met you, Dylan was perfect for this. My heartbeat stopped. Perfect for what? What plan? What trap? Brooklyn looked confused, but I felt sick, because I finally understood. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't fate. My father, the man who abandoned us, somehow placed Brooklyn in my life. He was behind it, behind everything, and it was only the beginning. Brooklyn didn't understand the weight of my father's words. She simply giggled, assuming Mr. Nathan was making some strange fatherly joke. But I knew that tone, that twisted smile, that glint in his eyes. He didn't choose me because he wanted me to be happy. He didn't guide Brooklyn because he cared. He chose me because he wanted control. He wanted revenge. On me, on my mother, on the family he destroyed. We finished dinner quietly, though I barely tasted anything. My mind was spinning, replaying his words over and over. I chose him for you, chosen, like I was a piece on his chessboard. Like my life was nothing more than a tool in his hands. After dinner, Brooklyn asked to use the bathroom. She went upstairs, leaving me alone with Nathan. The moment she disappeared around the corner, his face changed. No smile, no kindness, just cold hatred. He leaned back in his chair and folded his arms. "So," he said quietly, "you finally grew up." I swallowed hard. "Why didn't you tell her who I am?" He smirked. "Why would I ruin the fun?" My nails dug into my palms. I wanted to yell, to break something, to demand everything he owed me, but his calmness was worse than any scream. "You walked away from us," I whispered. "You destroyed my mother." Nathan's jaw tightened, but his eyes were full of arrogance. "She was weak," he said simply. "And you were even weaker." I had no reason to stay. My stomach twisted. How could a father say that? How could a human say that? "But Brooklyn," he continued, swirling the wine in his glass, "she's useful. She listens. She obeys. And she trusts me blindly, just like you trusted her." My breath caught. "What did you do to her?" I asked. His smile widened. What every smart man does. I gave her hope. I told her I'd help her succeed. I paid her debts. I guided her life. She sees me as a savior. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "And she will do anything I tell her to." The room seemed to tilt. "You manipulated her," I said, my voice shaking. "You used her." He raised an eyebrow. "Used?" "No, Dylan, I shaped her. I built her into the perfect instrument. Instrument, not daughter, not friend, not human being, instrument for his revenge." "For years," Nathan continued, "I watched you live your small, useless life. And your mother, still crying, still begging me to come back. Pathetic." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "I wanted to destroy everything you two had left," he said, slowly, quietly, completely. Then he pointed at me, "And you handed yourself to me the moment you fell in love with her." My heart felt like it shattered. "So you made Brooklyn meet me on purpose," I whispered. "Oh," he laughed softly, "I made sure of it." Everything clicked. Everything made sense. The random meeting in the cafe, the accidental eye contact, the sudden warmth, the connection that felt too perfect. It wasn't fate. It wasn't love. It was planned, engineered, designed by him. I felt sick. He continued talking almost proudly. "I told her you were a good man, humble, trustworthy. I pushed her to get close, and she followed every word. She always does." I covered my mouth, feeling like I was drowning. Brooklyn wasn't fake. Her emotions weren't fake. Her love felt real. Her care felt real. But she didn't know she was being used. She didn't know she was part of a plan to break me. And she certainly didn't know I was the son of the man she trusted the most. Nathan leaned back in his chair, his eyes full of satisfaction. "By the time she finds out, it will be too late. You'll be destroyed. She'll be destroyed. And your mother, she'll break again." I stared at him, tears threatening to fall. "Why?" I whispered. "Why do you hate us so much?" His answer was simple. "Cruel. Because you remind me of my failures." I felt like someone stabbed my chest. He stood up and poured himself another drink. "But don't worry," he said calmly. "The real show begins soon." My voice cracked. "What do you mean?" He walked past me, patting my shoulder with a cold smile. "You'll see." Brooklyn came downstairs a moment later, smiling like nothing was wrong. "Ready to go?" "Love?" Love, a word that suddenly felt heavy, painful, poisoned. I nodded quietly. We left the mansion, but Nathan's final words echoed in my mind the entire night. The real show begins soon, and he was right, because the next days were the beginning of a nightmare where I didn't know who to trust, where truth and lies were mixed, where love and revenge collided, and the trap my father created began to close around all of us. The ride home that night was strangely quiet. Brooklyn held my hand, thumb gently brushing my skin, but something inside me felt distant, almost broken. She was smiling softly, humming to the music on the radio, unaware of the storm inside my chest. I glanced at her, trying to see if she was hiding something, if she knew. But her eyes were calm, warm, innocent. She wasn't pretending. She genuinely didn't know anything. That hurt even more, because loving her suddenly felt like loving a knife that someone else was holding to my throat. When we reached my apartment, Brooklyn kissed my cheek. "You were so quiet tonight. Did you not like Mr. Nathan?" I forced a smile. "It's just overwhelming." She held my face with both hands. "Dylan, I love you. If something is bothering you, you can always tell me. I'm here for you." I nodded, but I didn't say the truth. How could I? How could I tell her that the man she respected, the man who saved her, the man she trusted more than her own family, was my father? The father who abandoned me, the father who used her for revenge. She kissed me softly and drove away. I watched her car disappear into the dark street, and my heart felt heavier than ever. Inside, my mother was asleep on the couch, a blanket barely covering her. I fixed it gently and sat beside her, my head in my hands. Everything felt like a lie. My relationship, Brooklyn's kindness, my father's reappearance, all of it, a web of manipulation. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about Nathan's words. The real show begins soon. What show? What was he planning? How far would he go? The next week, the cracks began to show. Small things at first. Brooklyn started getting calls late at night. She'd step outside, whispering, her face tense. When I asked who it was, she always said, "Just work, just stressful stuff." But her voice shook. Her eyes avoided mine. Then one evening she came over with groceries and a bright smile, but her eyes looked tired, red, like she had been crying. I asked gently, "Are you okay?" She froze for a second, then quickly nodded. "Yeah, just a long day." But she wasn't okay. I could see it, feel it. Something, or someone, was controlling her. The next night, she came to my apartment late, almost 11 p.m. She hugged me tightly, burying her face in my chest. "Dylan, do you trust me?" The question scared me. "Yes," I whispered. Of course, she pulled back and looked into my eyes, her voice trembling. "Then don't ever leave me. No matter what happens, promise me." Her hands were shaking. "Brooklyn, what's going on?" But she didn't answer. She just hugged me again, whispering, "I'm scared." Scared Brooklyn, strong, confident Brooklyn, was scared. And I knew exactly who was behind it. Nathan, he was pulling the strings, pushing her, pressuring her, tightening his control. He was trying to break her first, so he could break me after. One afternoon, she came to my apartment again, this time with a new phone. "I had to change it," she said quickly. There were too many calls, too much stress. But something was off. Her eyes avoided mine. Her shoulders were tense. Then suddenly, she snapped at me over something tiny, something she never would have done before. "You never listen. You don't understand my life." I stared at her in shock. She had never raised her voice at me. Never. She immediately broke down in tears. "I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening to me." I held her close. But inside, I knew exactly what was happening. Nathan was poisoning her mind, feeding her lies, pushing her to emotional exhaustion. He wanted her unstable, so their relationship would crumble, so she would break me, so my mother would suffer again. A few days later, Brooklyn didn't come by at all. No calls, no messages. I waited and waited. On the third day, I finally went to her apartment. When she opened the door, my heart dropped. She looked pale, broken, terrified. Her hands trembled as she held the doorknob. "Brooklyn, what happened to you?" She tried to speak, but her lips shook. "Dylan, I can't. I can't see you anymore." My whole body went numb. "What? Why?" She stepped back, scared, avoiding my eyes. "Please," she whispered. "Just go. Don't ask anything. Don't follow me. Just go." I could see tears in her eyes. She was forcing herself to say these words. This wasn't her. This was Nathan. Somehow, he had pushed her to this point. I took a step toward her. She backed away. "Please don't make this harder," she whispered. I have no choice. No choice. Those words burned through my chest. "Brooklyn, did Mr. Nathan say something to you?" She froze. Her breath hitched, and in that moment, I knew the truth. Nathan had threatened her job, her future, her safety, maybe even her family. She was trapped, just like he wanted. "Please leave," she whispered, voice breaking. "I'm begging you." And then, she closed the door, slowly, gently, like she was closing a coffin. I stood in that hallway for a long time, unable to move. Tears burned in my eyes. My chest felt like it was collapsing. My father had separated us. He broke the girl I loved, And this was only the beginning. I don't remember how long I stood outside Brooklyn's apartment door. Minutes, maybe hours. Everything inside me felt numb. My body, my thoughts, even my heartbeat. The girl who once held my hand like it was home just shut the door on me. Not because she wanted to, but because someone forced her, someone controlled her. Someone who shared my blood. Nathan, my father. I walked through the cold LA night like a ghost. Cars passed, people talked, life kept moving, but I felt frozen. When I finally reached home, my mother opened the door before I even knocked. Her eyes scanned my face. She saw the pain immediately. "Dylan, what's wrong?" I shook my head, unable to speak. She brought me inside and held me like she used to when I was a child who had nightmares. She whispered, "Tell me. I'm here." But how could I tell her? How could I break her again with Nathan's name? I simply whispered, "Brooklyn left me." My mother sighed softly and kissed my forehead. "Real love doesn't leave. Something else is happening." She said it with confidence. A confidence I didn't have. The next morning, something strange happened. I found a small envelope slipped under our door. No name, no address. Just one line written in sharp handwriting. "Come alone if you want the truth." Inside was an address, a downtown office building Nathan owned. My stomach twisted. The truth. Nathan wanted me to come to him. A part of me feared walking into another trap, something even worse. But another part needed answers. So I went. The building was tall, modern, silver glass shining under the California sun. I walked toward the top floor, every step heavier than the last. When I reached the door to Nathan's office, it swung open before I even touched it. Brooklyn was inside. I froze. She wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't shaken. She was sitting quietly on the sofa, hands in her lap, but her eyes were empty, like someone stole the light from them. Nathan stood behind his desk, smiling like he had been expecting a show. "Welcome, Dylan," he said calmly. "I see you got my invitation." I ignored him. I walked straight to Brooklyn. "Are you okay?" I whispered. She didn't answer. She didn't even look at me. My heart cracked. Nathan laughed softly. "She's fine. She's simply following instructions." My fist tightened. "What did you do to her?" He shrugged. "Nothing. I just told her the truth." I turned to him sharply. "What truth?" His smile widened, the kind of smile that could freeze a man's blood. He opened a drawer and tossed a folder onto the table. "Go on," he said. "Look inside." I hesitated. Brooklyn finally whispered, her voice hollow. "Don't read it, Dylan." My heart dropped. "What's in here?" I whispered. Brooklyn's hand trembled. Nathan leaned back, enjoying our pain like it was entertainment. "Open it." My fingers shook as I picked up the folder. Inside were documents, papers, photos. At first I didn't understand. Then I saw a picture of Brooklyn, younger, maybe 17. She was in a courtroom. Standing beside Nathan, my heart froze. "What? What is this?" Nathan stood up slowly, circling the room like a lion. "Years ago," he said, "Brooklyn made a mistake. A big one. Her family nearly lost everything. I helped them, paid their debts, cleaned their records, saved them from the streets." Brooklyn covered her face, tears dripping on her jeans. "My family owes him," she whispered. "Everything. Without him, we would be nothing." Nathan continued, "But every debt must be paid." My breath left my body. "What debt?" He looked straight at me. "Her debt to me was simple. Do what I ask. Go where I send her. Love who I choose." My mouth went dry. He wasn't joking. He wasn't exaggerating. He owned her life. Brooklyn sobbed. "I didn't know it was you, Dylan, I swear. When I met you in that cafe, I didn't know who you were. I didn't know you were his son." She looked at me through trembling tears. "I fell in love with you." Before he told me anything, my chest burst with pain. But once he found out, she whispered, he made it an order. She broke down. "He told me I had to leave you, or he would destroy my family again." My legs nearly gave out. Nathan clapped slowly. "I told you, Dylan. Everyone can be controlled, whether through fear, love, or their past." He paused. "Your mother. She was easy, Brooklyn. She was easier." I snapped. "You ruined her life. You used her." "You used me?" Nathan didn't even flinch. "That's what you do with tools," he said coldly. "You use them." Brooklyn sobbed uncontrollably, covering her face. Nathan walked closer to me. "And now comes the best part," he whispered. "You love her. She loves you, but neither of you can be together." He smirked. "That is my revenge." My vision blurred with anger and tears. I looked at Brooklyn, broken, helpless, trapped. I looked at Nathan, satisfied, victorious, cruel. And in that moment, something inside me changed. Pain turned into fire. Fear turned into purpose. Love turned into strength. Nathan thought he won, but he didn't know what he created, because this was the moment. I stopped being afraid and started fighting back. After that terrifying meeting, I couldn't sleep for days. Every corner of my small apartment in Los Angeles reminded me of Nathan, his words, his smirk, his control. Even Brooklyn's absence felt like a wound carved into my chest. I knew one thing: I couldn't let him win, not anymore. The first step was gathering the truth. I needed proof, evidence that Nathan manipulated Brooklyn, manipulated me, and tried to control our lives for his sick revenge. I started with small things: tracing calls to Brooklyn's phone, checking records, reviewing every email and message. Every thread, every tiny detail pointed back to him. Nathan had been patient, calculated, strategic, years of planning, years of observation, and now he thought he had created the perfect trap. Then came the moment that changed everything. I found a hidden ledger in Brooklyn's apartment, a notebook Nathan had somehow left behind in her drawer. It was full of transactions, contacts, and notes. He had been tracking every step of her life. Every school payment, every work promotion, every phone call, all manipulated to make her indebted to him. It wasn't just revenge. It wasn't just control. It was obsession. And suddenly, I realized, if I could expose him, if I could turn the pieces against him, I could save Brooklyn. I could save my mother. I could take back our lives. I went to my mother. "Mom," I said quietly, "I know everything. Nathan, he's planning to destroy us. He's been controlling Brooklyn's life, forcing her to leave me. He's trying to ruin everything." Her eyes widened. "Dylan, are you sure?" I nodded. "I've got proof. Emails, messages, even financial records. We can fight him. We have to fight him." She took my hands and held them tightly. "You've always been strong. If anyone can stop him, it's you." Her faith in me ignited a fire I didn't know I still had. I contacted Brooklyn next. She was hesitant. Fear still gripped her like chains, but when I showed her what I found, the resolve in her eyes returned. "We can beat him, Dylan," she whispered, "but we have to be careful. He's dangerous." "Yes," I said, "and we will be together." The plan began to form. I needed allies, people who could help us expose Nathan legally, socially, and emotionally. I reached out to old friends, private investigators, even some journalists who had covered similar cases in Los Angeles. Every step required precision. One mistake, and Nathan could destroy us before we even began. Days turned into weeks. We moved in secret, gathering evidence, creating airtight strategies. I trained myself to stay calm in his presence, to hide my emotions, to act as though I was still powerless while plotting his defeat. Nathan thought he had us cornered. He thought he controlled every move, but he didn't realize. I had learned his patterns, his tactics, his weaknesses. Brooklyn's fear became our strength. Her experiences gave us insight into Nathan's psychology, the way he manipulated people. Her loyalty, once a weapon against us, became a weapon for us. Then came the first real breakthrough. I intercepted one of Nathan's messages, a plan he had made to further isolate Brooklyn from me. I countered immediately, warning Brooklyn and rerouting his manipulations. For the first time, Nathan didn't know what was happening. For the first time, I saw a crack in his armor. And I realized something. Fear only works as long as the victim believes it's unstoppable. Once you stand up, once you fight, even the most powerful can fall. That night, as I sat with Brooklyn and my mother, reviewing every move, every possibility, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Nathan had taken so much from us, but he had underestimated one thing: our love, our courage, our determination. I looked at Brooklyn. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes burned with fire. She had survived the manipulation, and together we would turn the trap back on him. The turning point wasn't just realizing Nathan's betrayal. It was realizing our strength, our unity. our refusal to be broken. Nathan thought he had the final move, but the real game had only just begun, and I vowed, silently, fiercely, I would destroy his plan. I would protect Brooklyn. I would make him regret ever choosing revenge over love. Brooklyn and I met at a quiet cafe near Echo Park. Her hands shook as she held the cup, but her eyes stayed steady. She had changed, not the scared girl Nathan manipulated, but someone rebuilding her backbone piece by piece. "You ready?" I asked her. She inhaled deeply. "No more fear. I'm ready to end this." We began by cutting off every channel Nathan used to control her. Brooklyn changed her number, deleted accounts Nathan monitored, removed the hidden tracker he'd installed in her car. Every small break of his control felt like loosening chains around her life. When she finally said, "I feel free for the first time in years," I knew we were moving in the right direction. Phase 2, exposing his manipulation, next came the harder part. We partnered with a private investigator named Torres, a tough, sharp-minded man who had seen too many cases like ours. "Men like your father," Torres said, flipping through photos and documents. "They hide behind power, but they always leave fingerprints." And Nathan had left plenty. Emails, recorded calls, financial records showing payments to people who had pushed Brooklyn away from me. Evidence of emotional blackmail. Torres helped us piece everything into a clear, indisputable story. The truth was ugly, uglier than I expected. Nathan hadn't just wanted revenge. He wanted domination. He wanted control over every emotion, every movement, every decision in our lives. But now, all of that was about to turn into evidence against him. Phase 3, the legal strike. We visited a lawyer in downtown LA, a woman named Harper who had dealt with psychological abuse and coercion cases. When she heard everything, she leaned back and said, "This isn't just revenge. This is a pattern of manipulation. You have a real case." Hearing that felt like a breath I'd been holding for years. For the first time, I could see a future where Nathan wasn't hovering over us like a shadow. Together, we filed documents, prepared testimonies, and built a legal wall around Brooklyn and my mother. Phase 4, confronting Nathan. Face-to-face, the confrontation was the moment I feared the most. We arranged to meet Nathan in his own office, the same office he once dragged Brooklyn into to threaten her. But this time, we weren't walking in as victims. Brooklyn stood beside me, her shoulders straight, her jaw firm, no fear. When Nathan saw us, his eyebrows lifted slightly, not in surprise, but in curiosity. He seemed amused, as if watching children pretend to be adults. "Dylan," he said calmly. "Brooklyn, to what do I owe this?" Dramatic visit. I didn't waste time. I put the folder on his desk. Evidence, every secret he had tried to hide. For the first time, Nathan's expression changed. A flicker, a crack, a moment of fear. I leaned forward. "You don't own her. You don't control me, and you will never hurt my mother again. We're ending this." Nathan forced a smile, but his hands trembled. "Do you think you can beat me?" I didn't blink. "We already did," Brooklyn added, her voice steady. "I'm not afraid of you anymore, and you don't get to control my life ever again." Nathan opened the folder, and everything inside destroyed him. I saw it in his eyes. The moment power slipped through his fingers. The moment he realized the trap he built for us had become the trap that would choke him. Phase 5, making sure he can't hurt us again. We didn't walk out of that office feeling victorious. Not yet. Victory isn't loud. It's quiet. It's steady. It's the sound of a chain breaking. Nathan tried calling Brooklyn afterward. He tried threatening me. He tried guilt-tripping my mother. He tried everything. But each attempt became new evidence. Each message dug his downfall deeper. His ego had kept him attacking. His attacks kept us winning. In the end, he was trapped by his own obsession. Phase 6, Brooklyn's freedom, the best moment. The one that made every tear, every sleepless night worth it, was the day Brooklyn said, "Dylan, I feel like I can finally breathe again." And she meant it. The fear was gone. The shame was gone. The chains were gone. I took her hand and said, "We're not done yet, but we're close." She smiled, the real smile I had missed for so long. The shift of power, everything had changed. We weren't running anymore. We weren't hiding. We weren't afraid. Nathan had lost control, and he knew it. For the first time in my life, I felt stronger than him. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally understood the truth. Power belongs to the one who refuses to stay silent. And we weren't silent anymore. Nathan's world had always been built on control, manipulation, and fear. He thought power was everything, that influence over others meant he was untouchable. But he underestimated one thing: truth, courage, and love combined. And now his empire of lies was crumbling. It started quietly. Brooklyn and I began sharing the evidence with people he manipulated: coworkers, business partners, even distant relatives he had bribed or threatened. The reactions were immediate: shock, anger, disbelief. Everyone who once obeyed him now saw him for what he truly was: a liar, a manipulator, a predator. He called me endlessly, threatening, cajoling, begging. But every word he spoke was recorded. Every threat, every plan, every lie cataloged. His own words became the net that would trap him. Then came the court case. Sitting there, in a packed Los Angeles courtroom, I watched Nathan for the first time without fear. He was confident at first, but as evidence mounted, emails, financial records, testimonies, Brooklyn's sworn statement, his facade began to crack. He tried to speak, tried to charm, tried to intimidate, but it didn't work. Not this time. Brooklyn stood beside me, calm, strong, unwavering. "My life is my own," she said, and in that moment, the weight of years of fear lifted. The judge read the verdict slowly. Nathan was ordered to pay damages, lose control of all assets connected to his manipulation, and face legal consequences for psychological coercion. The room fell silent. Nathan stared at us, speechless. The man who once thought he could destroy us had lost everything. Outside the courtroom, Los Angeles felt brighter, the air cleaner, the sun warmer. Brooklyn wrapped her arms around me. "I'm free," she whispered. I held her tightly. "Yes, we re-freed." And for the first time I realized, freedom isn't just about escaping someone else's control. It's about reclaiming your life, your love, and your choices. Nathan tried to fight back in the media, trying to twist the story. But no one listened anymore. His lies had been exposed. His manipulations revealed. His control broken. The people who once feared him now avoided him. The friends who obeyed him now shunned him. The empire he built on fear and deception had collapsed, brick by brick, lie by lie. And we walked away stronger, united, unbroken. That night, I returned to my apartment in Los Angeles, my mother waiting for me with tears in her eyes. "I knew you could do it," she whispered. Brooklyn held my hand. "We survived," she said softly. I smiled, looking at both of them, my mother and the woman I loved. For the first time, the shadows of Nathan's manipulation were gone. Our family, our love, our future, all ours again. And I finally understood something important. Revenge doesn't always mean hurting someone back. Sometimes, the greatest revenge is reclaiming your life, protecting those you love, and standing tall while the liar who tried to destroy you falls quietly into the ruins of his own making. The city lights of Los Angeles shimmered through my window that night. Brooklyn and my mother beside me, the past finally behind us, the trap broken, the chains gone. And for the first time in years, I slept peacefully. The days after Nathan's collapse were surreal. The fear, the anxiety, the constant tension, all began to fade, replaced by something I hadn't felt in years: calm. Brooklyn and I spent time together, simply existing without manipulation hanging over us. We laughed again, real laughter, untainted by worry. We held hands without fear, walked through the streets of Los Angeles, and even sat in cafes without glancing over our shoulders. For my mother, the healing was slower. Years of pain and betrayal had left scars, both visible and invisible. But she smiled more, laughed more, and even allowed herself to trust the world again. One afternoon, she said to me softly, "Dylan, you did something incredible. You protected Brooklyn. You protected me. You protected yourself. And in doing so, you showed that strength isn't about revenge. It's about love." I nodded, realizing she was right. The fire inside me that had burned with rage was now tempered by understanding and compassion. We had survived Nathan's cruelty. But the true victory was in what we chose to do with our freedom. Brooklyn and I began rebuilding our lives together. She returned to her career, this time fully independent, fully free of manipulation. We started small: quiet dinners, walks on Venice Beach, evenings watching the sunset over the city. Every moment felt precious because we had fought so hard to reclaim it. I also spent time reflecting on my relationship with my father. Anger and hurt lingered. Of course, years of abandonment can't disappear overnight. But I realized something important. Holding on to hatred would only keep him alive in my mind. I could choose to let him go and finally live my own life. One evening, I wrote in my journal, "I forgive him, not because he deserves it, but because I deserve peace. I am no longer his pawn. I am free." Slowly, Los Angeles became our sanctuary rather than a city of fear. The streets where Nathan once haunted our lives now carried memories of laughter, love, and strength. And for the first time in a long time, I believed in hope. Brooklyn often whispered in the quiet nights, "We survived him, Dylan. We survived everything." And I would hold her close, replying, "Yes, and now we can finally thrive." The experience had changed us. We were no longer naive, no longer vulnerable to manipulation. We had learned the harshest lessons about betrayal, control, and deceit, and we had come out stronger. Our hearts, once fragile, had become unbreakable. Our love, once tested by cruelty, had become enduring. Our family, once fractured by abandonment and lies, had become whole again. The city lights of Los Angeles shimmered like stars in the night sky. But this time, they didn't feel distant or cold. They felt warm, alive, full of possibility. Brooklyn and I walked along the quiet streets, hand in hand. There were no whispers of fear, no shadows of manipulation, only the sound of our laughter, echoing softly, mingling with the hum of the city. My mother joined us, her smile brighter than I had seen in years. We talked about small things, meals, movies, plans for the weekend. It was ordinary, and ordinary had never felt so beautiful. Years of pain, betrayal, and fear had led to this moment. A life rebuilt on love, trust, and freedom. Brooklyn stopped and looked at me, her eyes glistening in the soft streetlight. "Dylan, we survived him. We survived everything. And now, we can finally live." I held her close, feeling the warmth of her embrace, the steady rhythm of her heartbeat. "Yes," I whispered, "we can finally live. And this time, on our own terms." We began making plans for the future together, not because we needed revenge, not because we had to prove anything, but because we deserved happiness. A life where decisions were ours alone, where love wasn't twisted by manipulation, where family, trust, and loyalty came before fear. For my mother, healing continued each day. She no longer carried the heavy burden of anger and worry. Her laughter returned lighter and freer. Her heart, once shattered by Nathan's betrayal, became whole again. And for me, I realized something profound. Life can break you. People can betray you. The ones you love can be trapped by lies. But when love, courage, and truth unite, even the darkest plans cannot hold. Even the strongest walls crumble. Even the most painful betrayals can become lessons of strength. That night, we stood on the balcony of our small home, looking out over the city. The lights sparkled like hope, the air smelled like freedom, and the future stretched before us, bright, untouchable, and ours. Brooklyn leaned her head on my shoulder. My mother stood behind us, smiling quietly. And I finally understood that the real victory wasn't revenge. The real victory was love restored, hearts healed, and lives rebuilt. Nathan's shadow was gone. The chains he tried to place on us were broken. And in their place, something stronger emerged. Faith in ourselves. Trust in each other. The courage to live fully. I whispered softly, "No more fear. No more lies. Just us. Together. Always." And in the stillness of that night, with the city alive below us, we finally believed it. Hope had returned. Love had survived. And life was ours to rebuild.